Mission Support Group Commander for the 23rd Wing at Moody Air Force Base. Doing a heck of a job. He's Colonel really the mayor for the base. He can kind of tell you what all he has under his purview. But tonight we wanted him to come and talk to you about a piece of property on the north side of the base that is critical to their mission, so that you can hear from him what the challenges are of that site and what our partnership kind of entails. So Colonel, if you would you assume the floor and give us an update on this piece of property?
I appreciate it, Brad. I appreciate everybody's time tonight to indulge me for a few minutes to kind of allow me opportunity to explain what's going on and what we're requesting financially from the Industrial Authority to help us. Take a sidetrack for just a minute. I had an opportunity earlier, what is today, Tuesday, a week ago from today. I was in Dallas giving a presentation that you're going to hear about later this evening concerning an upcoming construction project out on the base. We're about to engage in a contract to construct an additional 184 homes out at Moody Air Force Base. And last week I was in Dallas to make a presentation to a group of industry contractors that would like to potentially bid on that contract. And Brad's going to discuss that later this evening, but they're going to be here a week from today actually to meet with you and to meet with leadership out of the base and get a tour of the base and the current housing areas. But part of that presentation is explain to them not only what our current mission is at Moody, but the history of Moody. And it's interesting to note that it was exactly 70 years ago this year when a group of concerned citizens from Valdosta, some of the people in this room, and also interested folks from the Lowndes County got together and said, we want to support, at that time, right, 1941, we want to support our country's war effort. So they got a group of people together. They went over to Maxwell Army Airfield in Montgomery, Alabama, and said, what can we do to help the war effort? We would like to propose that you build a training base in Valdosta, Georgia. So the Army Air Force at that time said, okay, let's look into that. They brought a group here to Valdosta. They went down to the Valdosta airport, surveyed that, and decided expansion of that airport was going to be too expensive and did not meet their needs. So they said, well, we still want to help. What else can we do? So they did a survey, and the area that is now known as Moody Air Force Base was selected, 9,300 acres at that time. The land actually belonged to the Department of Agriculture. So it was a government transfer of land from the Department of Agriculture to the War Department at that time, which is now Department of Defense. Transferred that 9,300 acres, and that was the start of Moody Air Force Base. And as many of you know, the history of the base here in town, it's transferred missions and aircraft many times over those years, but one thing that's remained constant has been the great partnership and support from the local community. From initiating it to get it built to every day since then supporting what we do out there. So we really appreciate your support and the whole county's support. This current initiative, since the very beginning, the last few years especially, as many of you know, encroachment or potential encroachment on the air base is a concern to not only what I think Moody Air Force Base and the Air Force, but also for the community for several reasons. On our north end, this is High Tower Road. This is a dirt road, comes right up the Venus Highway, runs basically east and west. So that's the dirt road. And right next to the dirt road is the property fence, and then south of the fence is Air Force property. You can see how close. This is probably about 20 yards from the fence line and the dirt road to our current aircraft parking ramp where we have our C-130 aircraft parked there. For many years, this has been a concern, force protection-wise. I mean, even before 9/11, but especially since 9/11 has happened, we're very concerned about the force protection and security. We're not even allowed to park aircraft on these roads closest because it violates the distance criteria that we have from aircraft being close to the fence line of the base property. The problem is, or the challenge I should say, is that this is a tract of 25 acres, which for a long time we've wanted to acquire for several reasons. One of the main reasons is to prevent further development of that land right next to the base, and then secondary, but equally important, is that we would like to pursue closing this road so there is no traffic up and down that road, like right against the fence line of the base. The further challenge with acquiring just 25 acres is the fact that it's owned by multiple landowners. What is the count? Somebody remember the count? 24 different landowners are involved with that tract of 25 acres. So trying to get all of them to agree at the same time to sell this land, even though it's in the best interest of the Air Force, the best interest of Moody, and I'm convinced now, as a member of Leadership Lowndes, I've come to understand what's good for Moody Air Force Base is good for Lowndes County and the city of Valdosta. But to get all those 25 landowners at the same time to agree to sell this property for a set price to a set person that's taken many years to get to where we're at today. So several months ago, the Joint Industrial Authority was able to broker a deal, and we have all 25 of those landowners on board to sell, with one exception. When we did the survey and the title research and all that, we found that right over here in this corner, I think, there used to be a barn-like building that when it was torn down, instead of being hauled away, they basically buried it. So that there's a 1 acre tract of land over there that now is considered contaminated land because there was asbestos in the old building when they tore it down. So the Air Force is prohibited from purchasing known contaminated land. So at this point, the Joint Authority has, up until the first week in February, signed an agreement. They put $20,000 earnest down with the landowners to buy this property. And they were basically acting as a broker between the U.S. Air Force and the landowners to sell this land. Well, unfortunately, in the Air Force, you may know that Air Force does not have a real estate expertise. That's not one of our core competencies. You know, it's not part of fly, fight, and win. So we don't buy land. So we rely on the Corps of Engineers to do our real estate transactions. So not only has it been proven to be a concern for Moody Air Force Base and our leadership, but all the way up the chain. At this point, Air Combat Command at Langley Air Force Base has come online and says, yes, we recognize and acknowledge that as a security concern for the base, we want you to buy that land. So they have provided funding to Moody Air Force Base to buy the land. But we have to use the Corps of Engineers as our real estate transaction agent to make that happen. Well, for the Corps of Engineers now to go to all 25 landowners and try to get them together and agree to sell it was obviously going to be a big challenge when they had already just done that for the Joint Authority. So the current proposal on the table is that sum of money from this group, Industrial Authority, be loaned to the Joint Industrial Authority so that they can legally acquire the 25 acres of land. And then once that transaction legally closes, and Steve's going to correct me, I'm sure, with the right terminology, but when that transaction is complete, then the Joint Authority as the legal title holder would turn around and then sell it to the Air Force, to Moody Air Force Base via the Army Corps of Engineers. So that's the basic proposal on the table, with the exception of that 1 acre, which we were not allowed to purchase, so we'd be buying the other 24 acres around that 1 acre for the current time, and sometime in the future, if that land were cleaned up, then we would obviously be interested in purchasing that as well. And then with the purchase of that land, then we would work with the county and Mr. Ashley Paul and whoever we need to work with to get approval and support to close that road entirely. Just so you know, it basically affects one landowner as far as access, road access, and that's Mr. Atkinson. Some of you may know Mr. Atkinson. He has a home and property farther than northwest of the base. But there's another road around the backside you can get there. It's currently a dirt road as well. We may have some options to look at for offering to pave that road in exchange for closing this road. That's all down the road. That's step, 68 and a half after we go through the step to get this thing purchased. So we have funding is available. It's not only available, it's at Moody. Corps of Engineers intend to, in fact, we're holding them off now. They want to go out to those 25 landowners and try to buy land. So we're trying to hold them back. We don't want the joint authority obviously to lose the earnest money that they've invested. They have some legal fees that they've invested as well to get to this point. So the proposal is the joint authority buys the land, turns around, negotiates with the Corps of Engineers for a fair and reasonable market price, and then sells the land back to the Air Force, and then the joint authority would therefore pay back your loan of money to them for that. So that would allow us several things. First of all, guarantee us that we're not going to ever have new construction or encroachment in that area. It also will give us an additional opportunity to build a landing lane, what they call a landing lane for helicopters. Of course, we're able to use that last road there for parking our current transport aircraft that we have. So that's kind of the short version, explanation of what we're asking on behalf of Moody and the Air Force, and I think strongly it's in the best interest of the county and the cities too. As long as Moody continues to be a strong, stable contributor to our national defense, we're going to continue to be a contributor to the county and the city as well. Does anybody have any not too difficult questions that they want to ask?
I've got
the
a
expert
question,
on this.
Mr. Colonel, that's just really bothers me. You're insulating yourself against encroachment, and you're telling me that the Air Force is prepared to leave that acre dangling out here?
We're not going to construct. Is that what you're construction on?
No, I heard you, and correct me if I'm wrong, saying that the Air Force could not, pursuant to regulation, purchase that site because it has asbestos.
Just this 1 acre.
Now, the question is, are you just going to leave it in private ownership, which to me seems to be an encroachment in and of itself?
Well, it's going to belong to the joint authority, so.
Okay, we'll buy the whole 25 acres.
Right.
And you're asking us to keep the 1 acre.
Yes.
The joint authority. Are you also asking us to clean it up, or just?
No, I'm not asking you to do that at this point. I mean, we cannot buy it unless we're cleaned up. That's a future discussion down the road. The joint authority is asking for a loan of funds, not the entire amount to do this. I think the amount, Steve, 100?
9,000.
And then that would be paid. The value of that land is more than that. It's
Oh, sure.
almost double.
Okay. How long? What would it cost to clean up that acre that we're going to hold on to?
We will be holding
The joint authority, yes.
Joint authority will hold it until it can be determined whether or not reasonably it can be cleaned up. The fact that will be negotiated between the Corps and.
How quickly can we determine the cost? I understand it's pretty expensive to clean up one of those sites.
Well, it depends. I mean, asbestos is not something that's probably leaking down to the groundwater or anything, so it's probably going to be just a mass earth removal and treatment thing. So you're going to excavate an amount of land, do testing to validate, that it hasn't leached anywhere, and backfill it with dirt. So it's not as extensive as if it were a fuel spill or something like that.
Okay.
I mean, it's buried asbestos in the ground.
This is a $90,000 loan. How long will it take to complete? How long
We
will
put
it
a
take?
stipulation on it of the 90 days, they have to.
So
get that back to you.
you can do the whole transaction in 90 days, is that it? I guess that was my question, how long is it going to take to
Yeah,
make the
that's out of
transaction?
my realm, but the intent is as soon as they could legally close on it, then they could immediately begin negotiations. I mean, the Corps would do a title search, which should be pretty quick, and then they would immediately be able to start negotiations with the joint authority to purchase the property. Steve might have a better idea of the timeline for all that, but I think. well within.
Colonel, when we met last Friday, basically, the Corps had indicated something very quickly. As long as it was basically 90 days from the appointment date. So we would make the motion on the, for a 90-day term, $90,000. The joint authority buys out 25 acres, which they would, and they would convey 24 of those acres.
You're doing the note for the joint authority?
I did the bill, the vote, approving the vote for the joint authority to us.
Would you also do the title work? It seems like.
Title work been done by Bill Allan, so we would require a lender's policy.
Okay, all right. That's fine.
That would be one of the stipulations. Have an insurance policy, we have to talk about the interest rate. And then if for some reason, the joint authority could not negotiate an agreeable purchase price with the Corps of Engineers, and we don't think that's going to happen, but it could. Then at the end of 90 days, if they haven't sold it to the Corps, it would be my recommendation that we require them to transfer it to us so that we could work with the Corps of Engineers and therefore sure that they can come in.
All right. So you need a motion? What you mean?
I'll offer the motion.
Okay.
You want me to frame it in terms that we can all comprehend it?
Would you please?
Maybe asking too much. I move that the authority provide the $90,000 as front money for the purchase of ensuring that the transaction between the joint authority and the U.S. Air Force can.
With the joint authority and the landowners.
And the landowners, I'm sorry.
And it was 11 landowners, it was 24 in that whole big thing, so it's just 11 landowners.
All right, just a minute.
For the sum total of the
Just-
landowners to consummate this transaction.
Is there an interest rate that y'all would like to charge the joint authority? That's all they do.
At the rate of roughly 5% interest, or whatever the prevailing rate is, I think. And we can do that, Jerry, by amendment, I presume. All right.
I'll second that motion. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed? None heard. Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your time. Thank you.